All right, all right. So, what's going on, good people? Welcome to another exciting episode of the Extraordinary Man Podcast. By now, you guys should know my name, Phil Jones, Mike Jones. Have you guys know me personally or professionally? And I am one half of the host of the Extraordinary Man Podcast. So, you guys might see the title up there. Tell it like it is. Why would that be my title today? Yesterday, I decided to go live, and it had been a long time since I went live. Let me tell you, it is such a gratifying feeling to be able to jump online, have a conversation with folk. And I don't necessarily know if people understand how great it feels to be able to just be free to say what you feel, say how you feel, to speak your mind, speak your truths. Well, we're going to do no less than that between now and all of 2024. So, with that being said, let's get started. So, one of the most important things that we discussed yesterday was about understanding that there's rules to everything that we do. We may not like them, we may not always understand them, but there are rules of engagement for every single thing that we do. We have to be prepared to handle our business in whatever situation, however it presents itself. And one of the most important things that I hold true is that living my truth is the most valuable resource that I have. I don't look at anybody else's situation and compare it directly to mine. I don't think it's necessary to do. I think that one of the most important aspects of being an individual is owning your own situation, own your own nonsense, own your own foolishness. Put yourself in the best possible situation to aid yourself towards success. We are in an age now to where what you don't know, you can't go back and say, oh, my mom never taught me. My dad never taught me. School didn't teach me. No. The question is always going to boil down to, well, what are you doing to ensure that what it is that you want to achieve out of this life is taken care of? One thing that I know for sure is everything that I've wanted out of this life, I've always found an excuse to talk myself out of getting. And the only one regret that I have is how much lying I've done to myself about who I am, what I am. It does not take a truly honest person to be able to say, hey, I'm lazy. Hey, I'm not as much of a go-getter as I like to project myself as. It doesn't really take a whole lot of thought into that. Honestly, what it requires is for somebody to really assess the product of your output. There's a statement that people used to say in almost every industry, especially like in the tech industry, where they say garbage in, garbage out. So what you put in is a byproduct of what you're going to get out on the end. So if you put in poor study habits, you're going to get a poor grade at the end. You put in poor production, you're going to get poor output. No matter how you slice it, it's just that way. It doesn't change. Not because it's me, not because it's you. Some people get lucky, that happens, but if you have to rely on luck to get what's yours, that's a terrible system, right? Let's look at how many hundreds of thousands, millions of people play the lottery every year and who actually wins, who actually comes out on top. It's not a sustainable system. It does not work. Now, that's not to say that everything that you work for, you're going to get. What it is saying is that you increase the likelihood of you getting what you deserve based off of what you put into the process. Now, I'm here to tell you guys this. The content of your character and the content of your work is all that you have. There's nothing else out here for you to be judged on outside of what you produce and how you treat people on your rise and fall. Anybody can disagree with that. I'm open to discourse, but at the same time, I don't care. I lived enough of a life to be able to tell you guys that there's some doors that you can get into being courteous, being pleasant, that you'll never be able to get into with just having money and resources alone. There's some things that come along with being likable. There's some things that come along with being somebody that can speak, that can articulate themselves well, that can go into a situation and crack a sense of humor. You make a woman laugh, most women they're sold. Most times that's what happens. With a lot of guys, it's like, hey, if you have a good sense of humor, you usually can get to the second or the first or second date if you can make her laugh. You can put a smile on her face. Little charisma gets you a long way. You go into a situation, it may not even be a business meeting, but just the way that you present yourself, it's like, hey, you know what? I really like that guy. He's a very likable individual. Man, she's extremely pleasant. There's a lot of doors that will open up for you just solely because you are likable. Get to this comment. Also, sometimes resources allow you to build your own door. Yeah, yeah, that's true. But I want to stay focused on this for a second. Because I think that a lot of where we are is that we're in building block stage. We're at the top of the new year. For those who abide by the whole concept of the new year, let's just call it what it is. It's like, I don't see new year. I see extension of last year. When you are somebody who is executing on a plan, the new year does not affect anything. The only time that I tell people that they should be focused on the new year is never. What's new about it? What's new about it other than the fact that you write a 4 instead of a 3 at the end of your 2020? What's the difference? You still got the same job. You still have the same bills. You still have the same responsibilities. You have the same kids, possibly the same spouse, the same everything. So what's different? There is no new year. It's this whole hype of I can start fresh and new. You don't start fresh and new. A lot of us are not even in positions to directly abandon the old thing that we were doing. We're not in a position to abandon those things and to completely let them go yet. So that all out though in with the new, like it sounds good, but it's a fallacy for the most part. The reality of it is that there's a reconstruction that has to take place. And that reconstruction starts from internalizing situations and saying, okay, I am here. Like you're going through the mall and you look at that little map and it says, okay, you are here. Okay, well, I need to get here. Okay, so now you have the grid that shows you if you go this way and over this way that you can get there. You have to start looking at your life along the lines of number one, and I just had this brief caveat. A lot of people don't even know where they're trying to go. A lot of people don't know where they're trying to go. And I'll tell you the truth. End game is it's a fallacy, right? Because you're going to keep doing whatever it is that you're doing until you pass away. So I can't predict or project when I will expire. So because of that, I can say by this time and this time, I want to be in this field. This is how I want to earn my money. These are the associations I want to be a part of. These are the people that I want to be surrounded by. These are the things I want to be. I can sit there and I can structure out certain things. But the end game is eventually I'm either A, going to get bored, B, I'm going to outgrow that, or C, I'm going to run into new experiences that are going to cause me to see the world differently. Because now, okay, cool. Before you accomplished the last goal, the only thing that you had on your mind was accomplishing this goal. Now that you get in the atmosphere and you're surrounded by like-minded people, but they might have different skill sets that revolve around that thing that you do. So as you learn, as you network, as you build those connections, you might find yourself transitioning into an area that you didn't even know that you were going to go into. Case in point, y'all know I like story time. If y'all don't know, I like story time. I got a lot of stories. So my brother, aka the co-host of the Extraordinary Men podcast, when he first started his business, he was he used to solely deal in repairing cell phones and tablets. If you guys didn't catch my show yesterday, there's pieces of this in there that I want to drop, like little jewels that were in there. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so that was what his business was. Was it the most lucrative business? He would have to tell you that. I couldn't speak on his pockets. But what I can tell you is it was enough to keep him in business. Now, like most things, industries change. Like the automotive industry, the cell phone and tablet industry, or the electronics industry, however you want to quantify it, they change. So the certifications, how they design the hardware to where up into a certain model, now you have to have certain certifications to work on these things, or certain tools that you need to have to where you have to go through a certain rigorous training or whatever have you, just for them to even sell you the tools to work on those items. So if you're not in that closed circle of people who are allowed to do those things, then guess what? The door shuts on you, because now the newer technology requires newer ideas and requires newer results, and you're capped here. So guess what? If you could only work up to iPhone 9 or iPhone X, R, XS, whatever, and the technology changed at the iPhone 11, iPhone 12, iPhone 13, you either move with the industry or you move away from that industry. Is it as lucrative to stay in that industry? That's the question that has to be asked. If it's not lucrative to stay in that industry, or if you finally feel like you've gotten the ceiling of that industry, maybe I was only in that industry long enough to build a reputation and I decided to transition from here to here. One of my brother's favorite books that he talks about a lot is Who Moved the Cheese. When it comes down to who moved the cheese, you have to know where things are going to know where you should be headed. Because if you're still trying to do the same thing, but the well dries up in that area, then guess what? You're going to be left in the dust. Now, here's where I stand with this, right? My position is fairly clear on something. It's the fact that whatever your walk is your walk. I'm not qualified to tell you how to walk in your walk. What I am qualified to tell you is you have to take your own journey. You have to understand that there's some universal truths that are out there. Number one is the fact that you don't get anything without being connected. You can go out here and you could create anything, but you will never get as far as you would like to go unless you're satisfied with just collecting the scraps. If you're satisfied with collecting, some people are satisfied with getting just enough. Let me correct myself. Some people are satisfied with just getting just enough. They don't necessarily care about being in a booming industry. They don't necessarily care about being the top dog. They're not very competitive. They just want to do what they want to do, make enough, and go home. Well, I could tell you that if that's your philosophy, then this thing that I'm talking about does not apply to you. But if you're somebody who is competitive, you're somebody who you understand that we are in a race for material resource, that we are in a race for building things, because let's face it, Your family is what you hustle for. Furthering along your family and giving them the best possible outcome. That's what we do all the things that we do for. How you choose to feed them is up to you. Whether you want to compete to move up the ladder in somebody else's job in the private sector, public sector, in the government, whatever, or whether you want to start something from the building blocks and build it from scratch and work your way up, or whether you want to piggyback off somebody else's that's already a big dog or a big player in that until you start to build a brand reputation and then transition out. All these things are solely up to you as far as how you want to go about doing your thing. But you have to make a solid decision on where you're going. Also, there's people who will argue that money isn't everything. And this is no particular shot, but you have to take into consideration a couple of things. What can you do without it? If money is not everything, then show me a list of things that you can do without it. Some people will say, well, love is free, family is free, and we'll say a whole lot of stuff. But the reality is that taking care of your family is not free. Keeping a roof over their head is not free. Quality of life is not free. Everything is for sale. So no matter what it is, hell, the way that we receive love is through respect. So if you want to be respected, the ones who respect it in the community are the ones who produce the most. I'm gonna say that again, and anybody's welcome to question me on that or however they feel. But the ones who are respected the most in any community are the ones who produce the most. That's the bottom line. Whoever has the highest level of production in any community is always going to be regarded for their ability to produce because others are able to build themselves or sustain themselves off of what you do. That's why when you look in a household, right? If dad is going to work and dad is making a bunch of money, or mom and dad are making a whole bunch of money, whatever, however your structure is, what they produce is a trickle down effect that not only keeps the children sustained, but them paying their bills on time keeps the housing market good, the energy market, the water company, the grocery stores, the gas stations, you name it. The taxes that they earn keeps the schools in business, the police stations in business. There's a symbiotic relationship. So what do you think happens when you are producing at a high level? The more that you're producing, the more people are able to benefit from what you do. And that's where it's misunderstood a lot of times. So for those people who really delve into this idea that money isn't everything, I can agree that money is not everything, but I can agree on one other fact that is counter to that is the fact that your production will directly impact the level of respect that you receive. And because men thrive off of respect, go get you some money. It's not just about having a bunch of money in your pocket. It's about having access to resources that will give you the advantage. That those resources that you acquire, they benefit other people. So you have to understand, where are you more valuable at? Being this person over here at this job making 80, 90, $100,000 a year? Or you being making the same 80, 90,000, $100 a year, but you employ two people that live in the community? Who do you think is more valuable? Because this guy over here, yeah, he's taking home a salary that's 80, 90, $100,000 a year. But guess what? He's also employing two other people that are able to sustain their households because of his decisions. That's oftentimes overlooked. And again, anybody can feel free to question any of my philosophies or any of my thoughts, any of my positions. And I'm more than willing to stand on anything that I say here on this podcast. But if you're going to, in any respect, ask people or command that people respect you or that they treat you a certain type of way, you have to understand how this thing works. You have to be mindful of the fact that we are in a day and age to where you don't you don't get to be mediocre and receive the maximum benefit for the minimal output. I don't care what you think. You don't get to put in the bare minimum and receive the maximum output. You just don't. That's not how it works. It's not going to work that way today. It didn't work that way back then. It's not going to work that way in tomorrow. My thing is that we can say anything that we want to say, can feel however we want to feel, and that's perfectly fine. But let's look at a couple of things, right? When you see big controversies and stuff happen, the first thing that always happens is that there's always a character assassination on somebody. In those character assassinations, people will defer to an individual in any regard, especially the one who is making the initial accusation. And they will look at that person and they will say, well, who are you to be making this, because you are this person and you've done these horrible things in your life and you've yielded this level of whatever. One of the things that happened is that Cat Williams, in the recent interviews, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen him. A lot of people have saw Cat Williams airing out a bunch of dirty industry laundry and saying a bunch of things that people don't necessarily like. And for anybody who was able to sit through all 3 hours of the special, you heard him say a bunch of things that were very just they were they were they were they were big. That interview right now is at like 40, what is it, like 42 million now? I think that interview is like 42 million. And he told it like it was. The one thing that I respect the most about that situation is the fact that in him telling it like it was, you open the floodgates up to have real discourse, right? So when people say, oh, well, why is he coming out saying these things now? Why is he coming out doing these things now? Why is he addressing these things today? Well, Harvey Weinstein was doing what he was doing to people for 30 years and somebody finally got him. Apparently, Bill Cosby had been doing what he was doing for 30 years and somebody finally got him. Really, is there a wrong time to address the BS? Anybody can comment on that by any means. Is there ever a bad time to address the BS? When you see something and somebody finally has had enough and they decide that, you know what, today is the day that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to spill it. I'm going to let it out. Who am I to say or question why you felt that it was time to let these things out the bag? And the one thing that's always interesting is that once somebody is finally brave enough, then you see the droves of people who are coming out that are co-signing and agreeing and saying, like, yeah, you know, this happened to me, and this happened to me, and this happened to me. And it's just like everything that you think something is versus what it actually is behind closed doors is never the same. It's never the same. And that's one thing that I can appreciate for the way that the tone was set for the year 2024. That it was literally one of the most beautiful displays of somebody just saying, you know what, I don't care how I am looked at after this happens. And again, it's not like he's somebody that is not controversial. I mean, if you ever actually watched one of his comedy specials, I mean, dude he's not somebody who plays it safe. But here's the thing. And here's the thing that I'm trying to tell people is that the one thing I like about the way that the tone was set this year is that this year I looked at enough was enough a long time ago. Not just in industries, not just in music, not just in news, not just in this. You look at the state of our economy, you look at the idiots that we have in our political arena, you look at the people that are running this country into the ground. I do. I do think it's. I agree with you on that. I think it's situation. Everything is case by case. There's no universal way to look at any one thing, in my opinion. You can't look at anything. There's only certain things that are universal truths, right? Like death is a universal truth. The fact that your lungs and your blood and your heart are going to operate how they operate with absolutely that there's nothing that you can do that's going to make them stop. You can't forget to breathe. You can't forget your heart pumping. It cannot happen. So there's only certain universal truths in the world. And of all of these universal truths that are out, we have to take into consideration the fact that majority of what we feel is not one of them. My brother said something earlier today. It's like he called me and it's like it was funny to me because it ties directly into this conversation, like the GOAT conversation, the greatest of all time. Who was the greatest pop singer of all time? Was it Prince? Was it Michael Jackson? Who's the greatest basketball player of all time? Was it Wilt Chamberlain? Was it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Was it Magic Johnson? Was it Michael Jordan? Was it Kobe Bryant? Was it Allen Iverson? Everybody got somebody in their mind who they think that is the all-time, no questions asked, alpha omega of every single thing under the sun, no questions asked. And it's all opinion based. There's no truth associated with the greatest of all time in anything. It's just a good conversation piece to have. And it's an ongoing conversation. Biggie and Tupac. Name rock and roll group. Elvis Presley or whatever. Whoever. There's always an opinion about something. And that opinion is usually based on what you like. So when you look at any situation, right, there's always going to be good politicians and bad ones. There's going to be good police officers, going to be bad ones. There's going to be good doctors and bad ones. There's going to be great teachers. There's going to be sorry teachers. You're going to have good kids. You're going to have some pretty rough around the edges kids. You're going to have good businessmen. You're going to have con artists and grifters. It's going to be it's all a spectrum. Sometimes you can start off good and then teeter down a more lucrative route that's less ethical. You might not have started off this way, but you ended this way. Or you might have did something that was a scam at one point in time, and then it transitioned into a legitimate business. It was like, yo, well, maybe I could actually really do this. So you don't really know what something is, but regardless, the important thing that lies is that you have to put yourself in a position to look at things like, how does this matter to you? If the Chicago Bears win the Super Bowl in the next 20 years, how does that matter for me? What does that do for me? If Tampa Bay Buccaneers win, if New England, if any, insert your favorite team here and tell me how does it benefit you in any way? It doesn't. Short answer, it doesn't. You don't benefit at all. If you're a betting person and you put a couple dollars up, did you bet enough or did you even have enough to place on a bet on whatever it is that you were doing to where if you did win, that is going to change your entire life circumstances? More than likely, no. More than likely, no. Most people are not doing anything that is going to substantially change the trajectory of their lives. And a lot of it boils down to something very simple. Just how we started this conversation off. You don't know where you going. Why are you gambling? Is gambling part of your end game or part of your I'm going to play the crap tables until I hit that first million and then after that I'm going to start a legitimate business? Like, what part does it play? What part does that McDonald's cheeseburger play in where you trying to get to over the course of the next whatever stage of your life? Is there actually a plan involved in where you going? Those decisions that you make and those things that you're doing, is there a plan involved? Is there any level of investment involved in where you're trying to go? So here's how this goes. I'm going to ask everybody that's here because we extraordinary over here. We don't do anything less than extraordinary over here. What are you trying to do? What exactly do you want to do? When you wake up every day and you put your pants on, your socks, shoes, whatever it is that you do, whatever your process is, when you get up and you get your day started, what are you working toward? That's a question I think a lot of people have to ask themselves. Like, what is today? Is today the beginning of something? Or is today a continuation of something that I've been building on? What does today mark? Can you answer that question with a straight face? Would you want to be a police officer? You want to be a lawyer? You want to be a doctor? You want to run a business? What do you want to do? If you're still trying to answer that question, that's where I say to spend more time of your life focused on answering that question. Stop everything else and ask yourself, what are you trying to do? And this ain't just if you ain't doing nothing or if you just in the building blocks, but even those people that are already established in whatever it is they're doing. My brother and I, we make good money. We do okay for what we do. But this ain't the end game. This was phase. I might be entering into phase 2, where he might be entering into phase 3 of a long-term plan of action. And one of the big questions that have to be asked is, regardless of what stage that you in, you don't stop going through stages until you die. Retirement is a stage too. But just because you retire from working, does that mean that you retire from earning money? What are you going to do? I don't know a single retiree that all they do is just lay in the bed until they pass away. They get up, they move around, they do things, they still have investments, they doing other things. I think 30 is a good age to have an understanding of what you're trying to do. You know, I like that. Let's delve into that. See, I'm a firm believer of most men should probably, and I've said this on earlier podcasts, but I'll bring it back. I believe that most men should not be worried about incorporating families or serious relationships until they're at least 28 years old. Okay, so let's look at it from this perspective. You have no one man has a linear path, but let's just say that this was a traditional pathway, right? You graduate school at 18. You go to school from 18 to 22, 18 to 24, acquire your degree, get a couple of years working under your belt, get a feel for being responsible. You learn how much your student loans are going to be, your living expenses are going to be, and therefore you have a fairly good gauge by the time you're 27, 28 on what you contribute to a woman in any respect. And the other side of that coin is a lot of us get into trouble. We make our mistakes. We have our young boy moments. We do certain things. So you might need a little bit of time to bounce back, to get yourself back focused or whatever. But a lot of times we get into relationships, so we start procreating a little too early. We start doing things that are irreversible too soon. And by the time we do these things, we've already limited ourselves on our flexibility and what options that we'll be able to take just because of those decisions that we make. So you have to mature. I don't care what anybody says, 18, 19, 20, 25 years old, these are still kids. Somebody 25 years old walking up to me talking, he's still a little boy. Okay? I don't hear you. You still a little boy. You got a little bit more life experience than the 18, 19, 20-year old, but you still don't know nothing. You don't know nothing. Your brain ain't even fully developed enough to process what happens. You just got a better gauge than the younger ones. But from where I sit, you don't know nothing. And you going to turn 30 and you going to realize that at 25, you didn't know nothing. Now, again, no universal truths in that statement because some people got to figure it out. Some people's parents were able to put them on a direction that was going to transition them into where their purpose are. Some people, they knew who they were early. They knew they wanted to be an astronaut. They knew they wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. They knew they wanted to go into finance. Dad was a police officer. Granddad was a police officer. I'm going to be a police officer. Some people already know these things. So we're going to exclude those people. But from the ones that I've met in my lifetime, it seems to be more rare or more cultural than it is the norm. Because even some people who dad was a mechanic, grandpa was a mechanic, so I'm going to be a mechanic. Some people like that was good for them, but I don't want that for me. I want to do something else. I feel like I want to be more over here, or I don't want to be in this field. I want to be in this field, and now they have to start from scratch instead of carrying on the family legacy. So you have dynamics, right? But I do agree that by the time somebody is 30, and again, I'm gonna use this math problem because I want this math problem to stick in people's heads. The average person graduates high school by the age of 18. The average person retires now, you can say, by the age of 67. So between 18 and 67, that's a 49-year window, which means that you have time to make some mistakes, learn who you are, learn what you're good at, go back to school, and live a very comfortable life in the latter half of your existence. There is no perfect formula. The only thing is that at some point in time, that switch got to go off and you got to get off your behind and go do something. Got to go do something. There's money in McDonald's. It may not be at the store level, but guess what? There's corporate office, owner operators. There's money in McDonald's. It already depends on how you looking at it. If you looking at it from I'm gonna stay a cashier for the next 30 years, okay, that's your business. But you're gonna limit your earning potential by trying to stay in a situation because it's easy. But does it solve all the problems? If it solves the problems, hey, great. But then there's other people that's looking at this, they see that same McDonald's and say, okay, well, I want to put a location over here. And I want to buy myself into that franchise. And I want to become an owner operator. And I want to be able to collect this much money per year by having this McDonald's over here. Different perspectives, same company. Now, when you look at things from that perspective and say, okay, well, you don't really start getting, and I know I caveat and I deviate a lot, but it's like these conversations, they really make me think about things that should be talked about more in every community. You are generally going to be a byproduct of who you surround yourself by. I cannot scream this enough that you should be seeking out mentorship at all times. You should be able to get somebody on the phone and ask questions. Because there's nobody more qualified to get you where you say you're trying to be than somebody who's already done it. Somebody who's already made the mistakes. Because they can show you how to do it and you can cut unnecessary time out, because somebody who had to learn it the hard way can show you how to avoid the pitfalls. This is some very, very important information. You got to look at things and say to yourself, when you start developing an understanding of where you want to be, you have to say to yourself, okay, who can I contact that can get me there? And you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't know anybody. I can't call my rich uncle up. I don't know anybody. You know, it never occurred that you want to get into architecture. Find out what is an architecture firm in the city where you at. Just go knock on the door and go talk to somebody and say, hey, listen, I'm so and so. I'm interested in doing such and such. I don't know where to turn. Are you open to mentorship? Sometimes just having the tenacity to go to somebody will impress them enough to where they will take you in and give you a shot. So many of us are so limited in our thought process that's like, oh, well, I don't have these resources. Well, go outside and go get them. Who has it? Who has the resources? Oh, well, I don't have the money. Okay, well, ask yourself, how are you living? Do you not have the money because you don't have the money? Have you ever tried applying for a loan? Did you burn up your credit? Do you have access to credit? What do you have? Again, we don't all have that rich uncle that we can call that's out in Nova Scotia. You know, when the guys, the Africans send you the email and let you know that your uncle out in England passed away. He left you the fortune. We ain't all got the rich uncle out there. We don't. We ain't got it. So because of that, you have to start asking yourself, okay, how do I solve this problem? That's like chapter 1 of Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. How transpose the question and ask yourself, how do I solve this particular problem? So first and foremost, you have to have a full scale gauge of what the problem is. You want to go to school and you want to become an engineer. Okay, well, you can go to the school and find out what the classes are. You can go to Barnes and Noble and find books to teach you certain things that you don't know. Hey, how much for a tutor? Hey, does this college offer tutoring services? Hey, what do I need to do to enroll? Hey, can you show me how to fill out the financial aid forms? Hey, can you show me how to fill out for student loans? Can you show me how to do this, this, and this? People who say, oh, I don't want to take out student loans, I don't want to be in debt to nobody. Okay, well, so we are in a time-based universe. So therefore, what you're telling me is that you're going to stop yourself from making $70,000, $80,000 a year and being in a rewarding field and having the degree or having the credentials to get there because you want to piecemeal and try to do things the cheap way. So you're going to take 10 years to do something versus taking 4 years to do it. So 6 years of earning, and again, hypothetically, you're going to take 6 years of earning away from yourself trying to cheap way through it. Sometimes you have to think about the logic behind the decisions that you make. Why am I making that decision? Why am I doing that thing? Are we telling it like it is today, baby? And this is all, all 2024 and beyond. Do they offer work experience credits? You don't know if you don't ask. You don't know if you don't ask. More so than anything, you have to understand that your homies, your friends, can't tell you no more than what they know. Your parents can't tell you any more than what they know. So if you don't want the results that they have, you probably shouldn't go asking them for advice on what to do. Somebody who has not probably does not have the information how to. But if you want to be the teacher, you want to be a teacher at the collegiate level, go ask a collegiate level teacher, what did he or she do to get in that position? What steps do I need to take? What classes should I take? What track should I go on? And are you open to mentorship? I'm low income. I don't have a lot of money. I don't know how I'm going to pay for this schooling. Oh, well, there's the Teach for America scholarship. You can take this, and all your associated things that you get will cost you this. And once you fulfill this much at XYZ school system, they'll completely forgive those loans. Oh, I didn't know that. Of course you didn't, because you're talking to people who don't know nothing about how to get something instead of talking to the people who already did it. Go talk to the ones who have already done it. They can point you in the right direction. I keep telling people over and over again, I ain't even got it in front of me, but man, we walk around with $1,000 phones that access the internet at the speed of light, talking about what we don't know. That is the most irritating thing in the world to me. Why are you walking around with this expensive desire? You know every piece of celebrity gossip that there is, but you can't figure out who in your collective area know how to get you from one place to another one. It's insane. It's insane to me. It is. But that's okay. Uncle Phil Jones is going to take care of you. We going to get you straight over here at the Extraordinary Men Podcast. Hopefully y'all listening. That's a good point. Say college is where you build relationships that will matter throughout your life journey. College, it's a lot less about the degree, in my opinion, as it is about the associations. You have to remember that when you're in college, you're dealing amongst other future leaders of America. That professor that you have over here at this college, the reason why you paying more to go to this college than you are to go to that college is because this professor at this college actually was in the field and he stepped down to teach. But he has good relationships in the field and can hand you over to somebody, or they're still collecting money off of that thing. And they have retired, as we talked about earlier, they retired from doing the day to day, put somebody else in charge, and they're spending their time teaching how to do. It's a difference between somebody giving you book knowledge and somebody who can actually tell you, yeah, I own this, this, this. I conduct this much business. I'm able to do this, this, and this. I've been in the Forbes. You're getting what you pay for, in a sense. That's why I always tell people everything is for sale. Your education is not just about what you learn in these books. Because I can learn everything. I can get a superior book education and walk out the door and be light years behind people who have the right connections. And I'm just going to tell it like it is. There's very few professions that's out there that you can't learn on a job. I said it. There's very few. If you sat there and I don't for a second think that if you sat there and you shadowed stockbrokers that you couldn't pick up on stockbrokering. Now, my thing is when it come down to certain things, you want somebody who is very well educated and very well versed. I don't want everybody dealing with my money. I don't want everybody dealing with my fate. I don't want the lawyer that went to clown college to go in statement. I can look at a lawyer's shoes and be able to say, nah, I don't really want him representing me. I could tell the vibe from him walking in the room. You got to know who is the best lawyer to use in said circumstances. If I was going through a child support case, I want a black woman representing me. I want a black woman to represent me. I want nobody else representing me in a child support case or in a divorce case than a black woman. Anybody want to know my reasons why? Talk to me on social media. Hit me up at Phil Jones on everything social media. I ain't going to explain it up here. But sometimes you just have to understand that certain arenas require certain levels of thinking in order to put yourself in position to strategize. I don't want somebody who does not have a proven track record in investing. When you look at Kathy Wood's track record for investing at her 10 years prior to her building her own company, it was less than impressive. 10 years and you never earned the people who as a fund manager, you never earned your people 1% over 10 years. Let's face it, that's less than impressive in my book. And almost everybody's book is borderline criminal. But then it's like now you refurbish your brand and you start telling people about this stock, and you start becoming a media personality, this news correspondent who you'll go up every once in a while and you know speak on finances and everything like that. And it's just like, okay, cool. Well, you got hot with Ethereum. That's a one hot guess every 10-year average, and it's like afterwards it's just kind of like you're like a holy grail figure. And this is no diss to Kathy Wood. I'm just using what I've learned about who this individual is to use it as an example to say a lot of the times it's not about what you know. It's not about what you know. Because I'm sure that there was a ball player somewhere that'll make Jordan look crazy. He didn't get a shot. I'm sure there are fund managers that are making money hand over fist for their clients, but they won't sit on Fox News to discuss finances. A lot of times, what you do is predicated on the relationships that you build and how you're able to transition those relationships and turn them into something that you can use to build yourself off of. And that's what we have to get ourselves into understanding. So, like always, when you're listening to Phil Jones talking to y'all, I got some homework for y'all. Number one, go get some life insurance. We ain't doing no more GoFundMe's for people passing away in your family. Go get some life insurance. If you can buy a pack of Newports, you can buy a life insurance policy. Go get some life insurance. It's not expensive. Everybody should have life insurance. You want your life to matter? Make death very expensive. And I guarantee you life will matter a whole lot more. Number two, get something that you want to do and get started. Number 3, keep your mouth closed about whatever you got going on until that thing starts to grow legs. Again, life insurance policy. Find something to do and get started. Keep your mouth shut about whatever you got in the works until the train has left the station. You do not want to associate your time with dream killers and jealous people who speak ill or make rude gestures toward what it is that you're trying to do because they don't understand or because it wasn't them who came up with the idea. Life insurance. Get you something to do. Get moving on it. Keep your mouth closed on it until it's out of the station. Anyway, guys, that's our time. If you are new to the Extraordinary Men podcast and you enjoyed what it is that you got here today, my name being Phil Jones, one half of the channel, me plus King Midas. Midas, make sure you put the king in front. Let's go. We are that times 2. If you guys are enjoying what you're enjoying or you want to know more about it, please hit the like button, subscribe button. Please share the content if you found any part of it valuable. Greatly appreciate it and everything that's doing. As you see, I done brought out the candle for y'all. I wanted to set the mood, set the tone, because we ain't accepting no nonsense at all going into this new season that we're working on. And I mean to tell you guys that we are doing everything on an extraordinary level. Regardless of what it is, that's how we got to go. Like, share, subscribe, click the bell so that you guys can get the energy when it's coming through. Make sure you guys chime into the topics, talk about it, have a conversation at your water cooler, rub your dog's ears, right behind the ears in that spot they like, and tell them about it. But remember, whatever it is that you do, be extraordinary, guys. Peace.